Good evening. I want to welcome everyone to the June 18, 2025 Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. Tonight, we will be reviewing our budget for the year, and before the night is over, we will be approving a tax levy resolution and also the appropriations resolution to go to the full commission on the 23rd. First thing on our agenda is public comments. I have not had a notification of anyone signing up for public comments. Now, having said that, I'm going to move to the next item, which is discussion of the public hearing. There are actually two questions that were asked, and we're going to try to answer both of them. And I also had a third question that I will ask Michael to address. But first, Michael, and I'll ask you to address this, and it had to do with the accuracy of the property tax appraisal.
Can we call the roll for the record?
You can. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Commissioner Harris. Here. Commissioner Irvin. Here. Commissioner Johnson. Here. Commissioner Piercy.
Here.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yeah.
Commissioner
Here.
Commissioner Gooch.
We got everybody.
You answered for somebody else.
You're all present. Okay.
So I'll dive in. We had a couple questions at the public hearing last night, and I'll answer one of those, and I think the schools are prepared to answer one. But one of the questions we got was about the accuracy of the property tax roll and how it affects the budget, and should we change that? And so one of the ways that I'll address that is just to say that we are aware of the potential issues with the property tax roll, and we have accounted for that as part of this budget process. We have been conservative in nature and accounted for that, and so at this time, neither I nor we've conferred with the Comptroller's Office has thought we need to modify our budget in any way as a result of this at this time. So we have taken that into account, but that's where we are today.
Okay, the second question had to do with the percent of charter schools cost to the school system, and I'm going to ask the director, Dr. Sullivan, if you'd come forward and answer that one for me.
Evening, Commissioners. The percent of the budget for charter schools, so last year's budget was right around $11 million was what was budgeted, and so you're looking right under about 2%, so 1.7 roughly.
Is that your assessment for the coming year also, or?
Yes, and it is going to fluctuate. So after your first year, it's based on projections. First year is based on projections, and then your second year is based on actual students served. So after that very first year, it's the number of kids that you actually serve. So it's a little bit different.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Sullivan,
Yep.
We are funding, though, I think some grades on advance again this year.
That is correct. So anytime a charter school adds a grade level, so the very first year a charter school opens, you fund completely based on what that projection is. There are true-ups throughout the year, but every year a charter school adds a grade level. So if they are adding sixth grade, for example, and they're adding 30 students for sixth grade, you do go ahead and fund up front again for those new 30 students, which may not seem like a lot, but 30 students at $11,000 a piece roughly. You're looking around $11,000 roughly per pupil. So you're looking at $300,000. 30 kids roughly, if that's just what they're adding.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
The last question I had actually came from commissioners, and they wanted to know the results of moving a school penny around. Michael, if you would.
So part of the tax rate this year, we are proposing to move several pennies around on the tax rate. One of those is moving one penny from the school's 141 fund. However, just as a reminder, just because we move a penny does not mean we are reducing property tax below what we gave last year, and that does not mean we're reducing maintenance of effort. So just for the record, this year the proposed budget adds about $2.9 million approximately for an increase in maintenance of effort for the school system. It also adds, as part of that 2.9, about $30,000 or $40,000 additional property tax. Now, I'm not saying that's a lot. I'm proving that point to say just because you move a penny does not mean you're reducing their previous year's property tax. And so The net of that is we're adding about 2.9 million more to the school's maintenance of effort this year from local revenue.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from our committee members on the public hearing? Not, we're going to move to the next discussion, which is item 3, which is a discussion of the contribution to Almaville Fire and Rescue. I think Chief Farley's here to speak on that at Chairman Phillips' request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Larry Farley, Rutherford County Fire Rescue. Leaving the last budget meeting, Chairman Phillips asked me to speak on behalf of the donation that was brought up for Almaville. Right now, let's see. The mayor read this the other night. I don't know if it registered with everybody, but the CAD is what Mr. Joshua James was requesting. The total call, now this is from July 1st, 2024 to April 30th, so it's almost a year. Total calls assigned was 1,097 calls.
Mr. Chairman, could he speak into the mic?
This is a summary of from July 1st, 2024 to April 30th, 2025. Total calls assigned were 1,097 calls. Total responses was 651 responses. Total arrival on the scene was 380. No response was 446 calls, and canceled while en route was 271 calls. The fundraisers they've had this last year, and this is from the chief of Bailey from that department. Fundraisers for the past 12 years include Picture Drive, which was $73,000, Craft Fair movie at the Fire Hall for $1,250, Easter egg hunt brought in $800, Breakfast with Santa at Christmas brought in $2,500, and supporting membership letter that they sent out a letter to all their people in their district, $59,025, and still ongoing. They also give me a copy of their bank statements, and I think there's 4 counts, and the total in all 4 of those bank statements is $125,837. And then in 2017, the county purchased about a $600,000 fair engine, and that is assigned to them. And during that time, this is 2017. The mileage is 63,013 miles, and right now it's down because of a cracked head. And we took over the maintenance of those vehicles, so the total cost of the parts is $18,447.78, and the labor is going to be $9,500 for a total cost of $27,947.78. Speaking with Smyrna Fire Department has received a new chief, and we cover on the interstate from 840 up to I think it's a 70. It's the Almaville exit, and then also when we respond, Almaville responds in the area too. We back them up. I was told by the Smyrna Fire Chief just today that they have intentions of taking over that part of the interstate within the next 3 months. So that's going to cut their area down, a response area. And I don't know if I said it, but their total bank account is $125,837.47. So it looks like they are good stewards of their money. Their volunteer system, sometimes when they get phased out, they send you a full crew. Sometimes you may get, if you ask for an engine and a tanker, you may get one person on each truck. It's a volunteer system. I was in it for 20 years, and it's basically based on who's available, and they do what they can. I'm not disparaging in any way. It's just stating the facts of the way it operates. They do a lot of training. I'll give them that. And most time when they show up, they do what they can. But we have a good relationship with them, I feel like. And that's pretty much all I'll say. I will say this, that depending on whatever y'all decide to do, I think if you're going to give Almaville money, you should also consider giving Christiana, because they could have been shut down, but they wasn't. The mayor their chief come to me and said they would like to continue to operate, so we're going to move them over in the Fossville building whenever the Plainview building is built. So they'll still be operating in the Fossville area. And talking to Pettis, he said a lot of the people out there are very excited about having them out in that area. So that's just some information that Chairman Phillips wanted me to share and kind of give you all an update on what their status was financially and what they're doing.
Any questions for the chief?
Chief, what is the response time of the Almaville volunteer firefighters?
Well, that information's not in here, but basically, if somebody's at the station, it's usually pretty quick. If somebody's not at the station, it may take them 5-10 minutes to get en route.
So Commissioner James wants to give $40,000, which I think was approved. He's saying that will make them more efficient. How can $40,000 make somebody more efficient?
I don't know they can unless they're going to hire firefighters, full-time firefighters. I mean, they do what they can, and they do the very best they can when they show up. But I don't know that money's going to make them any more efficient. They got, of course, that engine's down, and they have a 2000 engine that the county bought back in the year 2000, and they still operating out of that. And I think they got another fire engine that they bought years ago that they run out of Almaville with it right now.
Okay, and you said there was one fire truck that's down.
Yeah, that's the new Ferrera.
And do they not have the money in their account to have that fixed?
Well, when we bought these trucks, we were spending millions of dollars on fire trucks. And of course, Last Casas had one, Kiptor had one, all the volunteers had them. It was my decision to make sure that we covered the maintenance on them, preventative maintenance on them, to make sure that they were upkept and taken care of. So this is something that happened. I don't think it's their fault. For whatever reason, that head cracked, and so it's cost. So since we said we maintain it, we're putting it back together.
So is there any time in the future it's going to get fixed?
The problem we've had, they've had to rebuild the motor. Everything. We're waiting on boats that are about 2 foot long that bounce the head, the engine, and once we get those parts in, it'll be back in service.
Any more questions for Chief? Mr. Vice Chairman Gooch?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Farley, you had mentioned several fundraisers. Did you say that was over the course of how many years?
This is, I believe this is within the last year. Let me look at this. Yeah, fundraisers for the past 12 months include a picture drive, which brought in $73,300. And then the craft fair brought in $1,250. The Easter egg hunt brought in $800. And then the breakfast with Santa brought in $2,500. And then they send out a letter, which most volunteer departments do, for asking for donations from people in their district. And so far it's got $59,025, and that's still ongoing. So there'll still be people sending those checks in as time goes on.
What was the $73,000 again, the first one?
It was picture drive. What they do, they have a company comes in, they go door to door trying to sell pictures, and the idea is to get them to come into the fire hall and get their picture taken by this company, and then they give them a certain percentage of what they collect.
So I added those up, and it's roughly $137,000. They have $125,837 in the bank account. Have beginning balance and an ending balance, or just how much is in the bank account?
Well, it's the.
In other words, they've raised $137,000, and there's $125,837 in the bank. I'm wondering, what did they start out with?
This shows the balance as of May 1st, and then it shows the balance of June 1st, and that's what I documented. What was in June as far as June 1st. They have looks like they have 4 different accounts, if I'm saying that right, and one of them's a ladies auxiliary. But just to break it down for you, in one account, it says special account, it's got $25,225 in it. And then the women's auxiliary's got $4,838 in it. And then this account is just another, it says $74,625 in that account, and then $21,222.55 in the other account. So they have 4 different accounts. And I'm assuming one of them is probably savings.
Okay, do you happen to have, because I guess what I'm trying to say is they've raised over the course of a year, $137,000. And their balance is $125,837. Do you know at the beginning of the year, say July 1 of last year, roughly, what their beginning balance was?
No, sir. I just asked for this month's statement to show how much money.
Okay,
Now,
that's fine.
I think every quarter the county sends out a check for $20,000. They get $80,000 a year from the county right now. So I think every quarter they get $20,000.
So $80,000 a year. So is that what did we go down to 40,000 and then Commissioner James recommended another 40,000 to get them to the 80,000 that we normally give?
No, sir. Over the years, it's gone up slightly over the years. I remember back when I was a volunteer, we got $25,000. But what happened, I think, back during under the Ketchum administration, they were getting $60,000, and I think Mayor Ketchum bumped it up to 80,000, and the commission approved it.
And so this year it's $40,000.
This year, everybody's getting $80,000. If you give Almaville $40,000, that's going to be $120,000. If my math's correct.
Any other questions for Chief Farley?
Mr. Chairman,
Could I say, I'm sorry, Director Smith, what page is that in our book, roughly?
While they're looking that up, I want to mention that we do have some members of the Almaville Fire Department here that could possibly answer some questions you might have. And Commissioner James may also want to make a statement, and I'm certainly going to entertain letting them speak to the committee.
Well, the chief, and I think the finance guy is here from Almaville.
Wayne, you can go ahead and
thank you. Did anybody else ask for additional funds?
No, sir.
Do you have knowledge of their budget, their estimated revenue, and what the additional 40,000, was it included in their original budget, or does it result from additional needs that have come up over the course of the year? And like a lot of folks, there's other folks that come in for supplementals every now and then and need a little extra money. And do you have knowledge of what their original budget looked like, and then what the additional money is for, and where that puts them at the end of the year in terms of estimated revenues and a revised budget?
No, sir, I don't. They're supposed to turn in every year in the spring to the finance director.
I understand. That's fine. I'm just trying to get the range of knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. So it would seem Commissioner James, maybe the Almaville chief and finance director would be in a better position to advise us whether this $40,000 is needed or not. I know we've already approved it once. It just seems like if they had a budget, they need a little extra money, $40,000, not out of the ballpark. And if revenues are a little short, I get that. Happens sometime. So maybe we need the chief and Commissioner James might be better sources.
And like I say, the only thing I would request, if you do this, we got 2 volunteer fire departments, I think it'd only be right to also help out the other department.
And to that point, I don't disagree. However, I view it as more, if they needed a little extra money, then they can request it. I mean, and if they request it, I think we as a committee and as a commission should entertain it.
Yeah.
But they need to, everybody has a budget, and if they need more, happy to entertain it. Otherwise, I'm not sure the need, just to give folks more money.
Well,
That's my bet.
Chairman Phillips just asked me to come up and give some information and give my view on it, and that's all I'm doing.
Thank you so much.
If I could
Vice
follow
Chairman.
up, Commissioner Irvin, that the other night, I wasn't objecting to the $40,000, but the way it was presented, the department head, Chief Farley, was bypassed. He was surprised by the request. That was my objection. Anything like that, in my mind, should go through the department. He should be able to have input in it. And that was bypassed. That was my objection. Not whether or not it was needed, but Chief Farley should have had the opportunity to discuss that with, in essence, this case, Almaville. So that was my objection. I wanted Chief Farley to have the opportunity to have input. And he's had it, so it's up to this committee to decide whether or not to make that expenditure.
Vice Chairman Gooch, back to you. Did you get your questions answered?
Just one more question. So the mayor's on the original, before it was amended, the mayor's recommendation was $240,000, which is, like you said, was $80,000 per fire department, and you gave input to that.
Well, that's $80,000 for, if I'm not mistaken, that's $80,000 for Eagleville, for Almaville, and for Christiana.
And so you had given input to that 240.
Yeah, I mean, that was fine with me, but of course, I don't usually interject in that because usually the commissioners make a decision where they want to donate more or less, which I mean, being a former volunteer fire chief, I'm sure they're always could use more money. But I don't say yay or nay on that.
But you were satisfied with the 240?
Yeah, based on
the original mayor's recommendation?
Well, yeah, based on some of the apparatus we bought.
Okay, thank you.
This time, Commissioner James, would you like to make a statement? You can come up here, or we can. And I also want to invite our friends from Almaville. If you'd like to come up, you may. I'm not hearing any objection from the committee.
Thank you for letting me come up and speak. I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. So, if you want to introduce yourselves.
Yep. My name is Neil Bailey. I'm the fire chief at Almaville Fire Department. This is Eric Gettner. He's our treasurer. I'm going to refer to him on a lot of questions involving the financial aspect. So, just a few things. Hearing some of Chief Farley's figures, again, I'm not calling anyone a liar here. I want to clarify. So the account balance that he gave you guys between our four accounts, there's a discrepancy there. I'm going to assume it was probably an oversight, but it's actually $108,000, $635.29 instead of the $125. To kind of put it bluntly, the reason we're requesting this is simply we have not been immune to cost rising. Yes, the county's been incredibly supportive of us, and we are appreciative. The apparatus, the annual donations. However, just to put it bluntly, it barely scratches the surface. I'll give you this. So here's some mandatory costs that we incur every year as part of our county agreement that we have signed. We have to conduct hose testing, ladder testing, SCBA testing on both the air packs and the bottles, pump testing, apparatus maintenance, insurance, and that's just to name the bulk of them that we actually have to farm out and pay someone to do. In addition to that, we also have to conduct hydrant testing, which that doesn't cost us any money per se. It's all our volunteer labor. There's just some fuel involved driving from hydrant to hydrant to turn them on and check them. That being said, we spend roughly $60,000 doing just those mandatory things to be eligible to get our $80,000 as part of the contract. So there's a little bit of the offset. The reason we're asking for that, our insurance alone is approximately $38,000 a year. for all of our facilities, all of our apparatus. So when we made this request, and I think Eric can kind of get into that deeper, we actually asked on our annual request to the county that we submit every year, I think we actually asked for 125, I believe it was. So, this was just a little less. And again, we're appreciative. I don't want it to come off that we're not, but I do kind of want to justify, we've got a lot more going than what's kind of portrayed of us. Chief Farley mentioned, yes, we received a brand-new truck from the county back in 2017. That's one of 7 in our fleet. The county owns 2, we own the other 5. So again, that's 5 other vehicles that we're maintaining, we're servicing, paying insurance on, and just like everything else, these things wear out. We've got a tanker that's a 2002. We own it outright. It is upcoming for some much-needed overhaul and repairs. It's our plan to attempt to have this tanker refurbished instead of replaced to offset the cost in replacing, a $500,000-$600,000 truck. With just what we pay out every year, that's not a reality right now, but that's a goal. But that's just some things that we face. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of why we asked for what we did. So yeah, I'll entertain any questions you guys might have, unless you have anything you want to say.
No. There was no intent to circumvent Larry Farley. We submitted our application to the Finance Department in March, as all charities are requested to submit. And in that application, we had asked for $125,000, which was an increase from the $80,000. I guess in the budgetary process, they to make a motion to grant $120,000 to the department. So there was no intent to circumvent Mr. Farley. It was just the submittal of the application. And in that, all of our financials are listed in that application. I don't have them in front of me at this time, but we've had roughly $116,000 in expenditures in this budget year. And we run on a calendar year, not on a fiscal year. So our budgetary process is slightly different. So I have to make accommodations to meet those fiscal year needs. But I'll answer any other financial questions you have.
Mr. Irving.
Go ahead. Well,
I was just going to give some of the timeline as well, but I'll wait for your question.
do you feel like you're going to be short 40,000? Is that what it is? Or lack a cushion of an extra 40,000 provides a cushion? I'm just trying to get a sense for.
Well, as far as short, we haven't budgeted the 40 grand into our budget for the year. We need to continue to purchase equipment and maintenance and maintain. And if it's not approved, then there are things that I have to go by the wayside. In the mention of the hose testing, we have 17 sections of hose that failed. So we have to replace that hose. We don't have anything in the budget at this time for replacement. So this extra $40,000 would help cover some of those costs. So the request was for an increase because of day-to-day costs of all the equipment, and maintenance and training has risen, and it was to help offset some of those costs. Our budgetary process, roughly, the Picture Drive fundraiser is roughly 30%. The supporting membership's roughly 32%. And then the county donation is roughly 30% of our budget. And the remaining 5 to 6% is just in small miscellaneous fundraisers and corporate donations that we occasionally receive.
So it sounds like you're just a little short this year. You need a little extra cash, either for expenditures or a cushion. Has this been a historical trend? Have you historically been able to live?
Historically, we've met all the financial needs year to year. In the 4 different accounts that are currently listed, the one account that has $25,000 in it, that money is from a state grant from the state of Tennessee. So it's already been earmarked and spent. So it's currently sitting in our account because the state has given us the funds. We're in the process of purchasing all the equipment to meet the needs of that grant. So it's not really money that we have available, but it's currently sitting in our bank account.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure. I'd like to add just a few more things, and I'll let you guys get on. So this year, we anticipate our insurance to go up. I received a phone call from our insurance agent and carrier requesting lunch, which that usually means insurance is going to go up. We have had some claims this past year. So again, this is just something that we are trying to foresee and prepare for the future, and also sustain operations. So that's kind of the reason we're going there. To answer your question as far as shortcomings, things like that, like Eric said, we constantly have to purchase equipment. So, the equipment that each firefighter wears, the personal protective equipment, it's about $4,300 a set, and that's head to toe. We have to issue everybody a set, and it has a 10-year lifespan. So we received, Chief, when was that? 2020? No, the big buy of turnout gear. It was during the Ketchum administration. We did receive a few sets of turnout gear from the county that I think some funding was allocated for. But again, we're 5 years into that stuff now. Again, it's got 5 years left on it. And oftentimes, that stuff doesn't make it the entire 10 years. It's a consumable item. So we have 60 volunteers on our department, 50 of them roundabout, plus or minus 2, are all suppression members. So that's 50 sets of gear that we have to constantly start cycling and making sure that we've got, the funds to keep people protected. And then just to kind of hit one other thing, as far as our responses and our makes and misses, if you will, again, my numbers contradict that. I would be interested in kind of comparing notes, maybe with Chief Farley on the side, but I did kind of want to just let it be known on the record. So between January 1 of 2025 and the 16th when I ran this report, according to our report, we've had 394 calls. Of that, only 68 during that time frame were missed. I do want to say, we strive for that number to be 0, but as Chief Farley said, it is a volunteer system. It's not perfect. We're all the time striving to reduce that number down. However, that's the facts. So, like I said, that's just what I had on mind. I kind of wanted to set that straight. Again, I'm not suggesting anybody's suggesting otherwise maliciously, but there is obviously a discrepancy there. So.
Explain that you have.
Yeah, so, and some of that discrepancy might be back several months ago. Let me see if I can find it. We actually transitioned from a reporting system that was under the county umbrella. So basically, Rutherford County Fire held the contract for the report system we used. We transitioned out of their system into our own. We actually utilize the exact same software unless they've changed. But the reason we did that was we were just having some issues with the information we were receiving. So any information that I have, I only have it dating back to August of 2024. That's when we transitioned to that system. But with that being said, like I said, I think there's a few discrepancies in the numbers, and I'm sure we could probably, if we got into it, we could probably try to roundabout figure out why. But with that being said, I really appreciate y'all's time. Again, I'll entertain any questions you may have.
And to kind of, I heard Commissioner Phillips make the comment about circumventing policies and stuff. I wanted to point out that for at least the last 2 years, almost every time that I've had conversations with Chief Farley, I've always had at some point in the conversation pointing out that there's a need here. There's a need for this. There's a need. The amount has fluctuated as inflation and other price tags have gone up and so forth, but it was the amount was coming. It was going to be needed to be asked upon and talking about it. We had a difference of opinion and so forth, but there was conversations back and forth on it. I met with the mayor on April 28th for other matters, and we discussed this briefly. He listened, he took it in, and then 2 days later, I've got an email that explained the brief topic, the broad grace about the idea of keeping Christiana open. Then I brought it up here at the Budget Committee. You guys, I'm sure, remember that following one, where I mentioned it. And that's when Chief Farley presented that, no, the intent is to move Christiana into Fosterville and keep that funds. Because my initial idea was with Christiana essentially going offline like the other volunteers had as the public health and safety buildings came online. Then October, that's only 1/4. That left 60,000 remaining in the original 80,000. That puts 40,000 that could be used to help Almaville out and save the county 20,000. And there's no motion, no second on that. That came out more informational. So the next night at Public Safety, I brought it up, where we passed it 6-1 to come back to you guys to request, to where when it did get back, y'all did pass it through. So there was the dialogue, the back and forth. I just had differences of opinions of what was needed because these are my backyard. This is heavy in my district, and I'm seeing it front row center and looking at the notes constantly and trying to stay as involved as I can and so forth. So I wanted to make sure you were aware that in a way it does appear, I guess, but it was more the informational back and forth, going back and forth and arguing and stating facts and waiting to see and realizing that there wasn't me in the room. And after that meeting, on the first time I brought it up, when it came about Christiana going into Fosterville, I didn't take any approach to take any of their funding. I didn't take any approach to argue that because they're losing a large chunk of their scale because of our public health and safety building that we're going to be paying paid firemen out of, that why didn't their scale, their paycheck go lower? They have a smaller area. I'm not arguing any of that. I want to keep them as funded. It's going to help the county enormously having the extras out there. I wish we could expand in several different areas the same way that this one did in Christiana. I wish that had happened in Walter Hill and Rockville and Las Casas. I think it would have benefited the county more. But in this specific case, it came to, yes, there is funding needed. It will, I mean, like he said, the insurance alone last year was $40,000, and they're now scheduling a meeting because they've asked, because it's going to rise. It's going to go up more. So, yes. And then the final thing, and I'll leave with you, was the argument that trying to keep it even across the board. Well, the other two departments in this 3-department line are different. Christiana is now moving to Fosterville, and they are losing roughly 60% of their size that they will be operating under. And they could, I'm sure they operate under the same size or so forth. That becomes more of a dispatching argument for that. But they're definitely going to be encompassing a small area because they have the public health and safety building right in their backyard to help them out. Almaville doesn't. Then you look at Eagleville. Eagleville is the municipality which we have agreement on so that we can not have to leapfrog them. They can go get the outskirts of the county that we can't reach in a timely manner, and that's why we have them. So it's two different entities versus this. So there is that back and forth argument to consider. So with that and with whatever information, any other questions you have, I'd be happy to answer, and I'd be happy for one of these guys to answer as well.
Any questions from
Yeah,
your
just one
recognized
question. I think one of you had mentioned, if I want to make sure I understood it correctly, that your annual expenses is around $116,000.
Sorry, that was year to date. Our budget for this year was $212,000.
So
For the entire,
over the course of a year, about
Over the course of the year,
212,000
yes.
would be your.
I hadn't heard anything about what it cost you to upkeep your buildings, your electrical costs, gas costs, fuel costs, replacing tires.
I don't have that in front of me. I know the application.
That's part of,
was
but that's
submitted,
part of the
but
total
yes.
budget you just
Yes.
mentioned, though, is what I was getting at. Haven't done this before myself, so that's.
I got you. Okay.
Any other questions from the committee? And I want to point out, we have already approved this. If we want to make a change, there'll have to be a motion from the floor to make a change. This $40,000 has already been approved, and it's currently in the budget. So are there any other questions for these gentlemen? If not, I'm going to ask them to go ahead and sit down. Guys, thank you for your input.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion one way or the other. We don't have to have a motion at all. If anybody wants to make a change, I'll entertain that right now. Hearing none, we're going to move to our next agenda item, which is an agreement with Middle Tennessee State University, item 4. Michael, you want to cover this for me? This has to do with the opioid board agreement.
So the last year or so, the opioid committee has worked with MTSU. They help manage the applications. They rate these applications, and they do a lot of work with our opioid committee. And so this agreement will be for next fiscal year. The funding for this agreement is part of the opioid funds. That is already part of the budget, so this agreement is just coming before you to approve for next year's management of opioid funds with the opioid committee.
And where's this money coming from again?
It is from the opioid funds. It's funded through the opioid funds.
Okay, you've heard the discussion there, and I'm going to open the floor for a motion on this agreement with MTSU. I have a motion to approve the agreement.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion?
Just a quick question. Has the county attorney reviewed this? Thank you.
All right. Any other? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Pearcy? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes, motion carries. Item 5, the 2025 Centralized Cafeteria Fund Budget Amendment. And we've got a couple for you, so.
No big deal. Good evening, Commissioners. The first budget amendment is for Fund 143. This FY 24-25 Centralized Cafeteria Fund Amendment increases 99,100, 504 indirect costs and decreases 34,570 restricted fund balance in the amount of $3,484,173 to budget for indirect costs that are accumulated in Fund 141 being reimbursed by Fund 143. Indirect costs are incurred for the benefit of multiple programs, functions, or other cost objectives and cannot be readily identified as having been incurred, especially for the school food service program. Indirect cost rates are calculated annually by TDOE, and the child nutrition programs use the unrestricted indirect cost rate. The FY 24-25 unrestricted indirect cost rate for Rutherford County Schools is 11.33%.
If it's okay with the committee, we'll proceed with others, but I see a question over here to Mr. Irvin.
This is a question I get a lot, and from people who watch budget folks. Can you say that in about 3 or 4 sentences in, I'll call it plain English? In other words, what the transfer is for and what we're doing?
Okay, so this transfer is to cover costs in 141 that were incurred in the 143 program or the Central Cafeteria program for indirect costs, those costs that aren't directly related to the Central Cafeteria program. For example, electricity, utilities, gas, certain salaries that are paid out of there. So what we're doing is we're transferring that money to cover the cost that's incurred in 141 out of 143. Fund 143.
Is all this basically overhead type stuff? Or no?
Yes. So indirect cost is available for federal grants and for nutrition. This is going to cover things like Brian's department helping with the bookkeeping for the nutrition department. Dr. Sullivan oversees it, electricity, utilities, bug spraying for the central office for their offices. So it covers overhead cost.
Transferring overhead costs from 141 to 143.
143 to 141.
To basically provide for those, to cover those costs.
Mm-hmm. A portion of those. It'll never cover the whole thing, but it'll cover a portion.
Thank you.
Right.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if it's okay with the committee, I'll let him proceed with the next one that he's got here.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so the second budget amendment is Fund 143, Centralized Cafeteria Year-End Cleanup Amendment that budgets funds for expenditures such as employee payouts, food supplies and materials, and the transportation of those items. This amendment moves money between multiple line items without increasing or decreasing revenues and expenditures. This allows several line items to have money amended into them so they will not be over budget at year-end.
Okay. Any questions on the second amendment, Commissioner?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve the 2 amendments. Do I hear a second? Second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes, motion carries. Please continue, guys.
Okay, so the last one is for our Fund 141 Fund Balance Amendment. This year in cleanup amendment budget, $17,402,929 for items such as leave payouts, increases for degree and certification pay scale changes, stipends, insurance premium increases, adjustment for amended Innovative Schools Model Program, additional costs for contracted services, and capital outlay for construction. Also, the increased cost for liability insurance due to recent transportation claims is included in the amendment. Next, it budgets additional expenditures for maintenance, custodial supplies, student and staff support contracted services. Finally, it funds the purchase of one-to-one computers for high school students, student laptops, and mobile charging stations for elementary schools. Funding for these expenses come from additional TISA and state revenue, as well as indirect costs from the cafeteria program. This revenue and transfers are collected above budgeted amount and allow additional expenditures and the movement of current budgeted expenditures between multiple accounts and within object codes.
So one thing, a little bit of good news we shared with Health and Ed last night. So we talked with Health and Ed and also have talked to Budget Committee that we had anticipated using fund balance to purchase one-to-one high school computers. And so we have additional, and all of this additional revenue is state revenue. We received additional state revenue to purchase high school computers in this budget amendment, so we will not have to come back and ask to use fund balance to purchase high school one-to-one computers. It's in this budget amendment.
Okay, you've heard the request. Any comments, or Mr. Irving?
The capital outlay for construction, are you using 140? What's that about in the context of 141?
Yeah.
Are you talking about in the amendment here?
Well, I'm looking, it's on like the fourth line of the summary, fourth line of the summary. It says additional cost, capital outlay for construction. And I was just curious what that is.
Yeah, that's our ISM grant, our Innovative School Model Grant. That's a state-funded grant that runs through 141, Fund 141.
ISM is?
Innovative School Models. It's a CTE-backed grant, basically. So it's a state-funded grant that the governor put forth 2 years ago, and it has a three-year grant period.
A capital expenditure. Capital construction expenditure.
You can use it for that, but if you want to speak to that.
You can use it for a multitude of things. Equipment to increase programming. You can use it for capital to make enhancements to your program. You can use it for positions. We try not to use it for positions because the grant does go away. And so we've tried to enhance some of our programs that we have. We also looked at building our own CTE center, but that wasn't something we were able to do with the amount of funding that we had. And so we're enhancing our programs that we have, but it does run through 141 as part of the receipt.
Okay, and thank you.
Yep.
And now, okay, we talked about this a little. We've talked about this, and I'm just trying to get a little bit of information out there as well.
Yeah.
In terms of, this isn't actually a true up to actual.
Mm-hmm.
This is a true up to anticipated as of June 30th.
Yeah, you want to answer
Is
that?
that accurate?
Yeah.
Yes, because we're not actually, so what we're moving into these accounts and out of these accounts is not our actuals, because we don't know our actuals until June 30th. So it is a true up that for anticipated cost above and beyond what we originally budgeted.
Can you talk to, because $17 million is a lot of money, I think, by most accounts. And I'm just trying to think through, and we talked about this a little bit as well. Can you help us understand, and the folks who I talked with about this outside the chamber, can you talk about the components of that in terms of, okay, how do you come up with that basic estimated number? Because there's a little bit of a question. A lot of people think you're truing up to actuals, but you're not really truing up to actuals. Okay. In fact, I thought that at one point. And so if you could address the components and what you're trying to do with the true-up, I think it might help some of the folks who sometimes watch these meetings understand this isn't really a pure true-up to actuals. This is like an amended budget, as if, sort of.
Yes, before I go, the chairman asked me to clarify my name. I'm Brian Runyon, CFO for Rutherford County Schools. But to answer your question, Commissioner, so we receive additional revenue, which was $17 million, or $12 million of it was out of TISA. Another $3 million was from the indirect costs that we pulled from Cafeteria Fund, and then a couple other revenues that we received in order to be able to move this money around. So if we had, a specific account that may have been over, may have not been 100% budgeted due to having to pay vacation payouts for salaries or, additional for insurance, for example, we don't know what our aggregate amount is going to be for the next year from the state because we don't receive that until usually July after our budget for that year has been passed. So with that said, what it is we're taking that money and budgeting it into those amounts that are not actuals, into those line items in order to cover some overages possibly, but then also move the money around that is in our current budget to cover them as well. So we're not using the true $17 million because we've overspent those line items.
I'm guessing there's a pretty healthy cushion in there too.
There is. We will not spend $17 million of this amendment down to that exact penny. There'll be money left over, which will roll into our fund balance. But we have to budget that revenue in order to be accurate with the amount of money we were receiving from the state.
When it rolls into fund balance, does it come back through the commission, through the budget committee and the commission?
No, that's what happens at the year end. It just automatically rolls into our fund balance because our revenues are this amount, our expenditures are this amount. If we have a surplus, that surplus automatically rolls into our fund balance whenever we roll the books for the next year.
And to clarify, all of these 17 million, or that additional TISA funding was all state funding. And so that wasn't local. That additional TISA was all state funding. We do not budget that additional state funding because it's not a guarantee. One is outcome funding. So we have no idea about outcome funding. It's usually $3 to $4 million. We don't receive results on state assessment until the fall and winter. And so we don't receive that funding until December. So we never budget that as revenue. Second big portion of that is growth funding, and you have to hit a certain threshold of growth to receive it. And so every year it fluctuates whether or not we actually get the growth funding. And then when it rolls into fund balance, to use fund balance, then we would have to come back before budget to ask to use that funding. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
You recognize?
So tell me if I'm wrong, Brian. So we're 2.9 million over MOE?
Yes, there was 2.9.
That 17, now bring that number down?
Well, this 17 is in this fiscal year. It's not in next fiscal year. So that's the difference because that 17, we don't know what's going to roll in to fund balance, so we can't predict that it's going to be covered to cover that 2.9 million.
So two different things unrelated. They've actually budgeted part of this 17 as part of their budget next year, their increase in TISA. So it doesn't affect MOE at all.
Any other questions from the committee? Dr. Sullivan, go ahead.
The other thing I want to point out is that we have about $7 million in our one-to-one laptops budgeted into this to be able to purchase that instead of going into fund balance. And so that is where a huge portion of this extra funding is going to, so that we don't have to come back and ask to take it out of fund balance. So we can go ahead and take care of it out of this budget cycle.
Any further questions from the committee? Not, I'll entertain a motion. So move. I have a motion from Commissioner Sereno for approval.
Second.
Second. Vice Chairman Gooch. Further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Okay, item 7.
Mr. Chairman, before Dr. Sullivan leaves, there was a question asked last night. A lot of people are concerned about, not concerned, but have a question about cleanup. And some of the conception of that is that we've got extra money, so we're going to figure out a way to spend it. Can you clear up what cleanup really means?
Yeah, cleanup amendments are ways that we cut our spending off at the school levels in May, and so we discussed this last night, and then we cut it off at our central office very early in June, and so it's not a way for us just to spend extra money, because whatever money is available rolls into our fund balance, and that's how we've been able to build such a healthy fund balance, and we've use that for items we needed, such as building or using it for design fees for schools, using it to help build the elementary school textbooks. And so we truly utilize whatever funding is available to helpfully build that fund balance back up. So, and that is something that I can forward you the email. It's the same email I send to central office every year and to our principals that says, spending money just to spend money is not how we operate in Rutherford County Schools, and we are stopping spending POs and issuing POs as of this date. So thank you for asking. Yep.
You're welcome. Item 7, speaking of cleanup amendments, we've actually got 4, I believe, and I would prefer to take these together, but if the committee wants to separate these, of course we will. But Michael, if you would go ahead and explain what we got going on.
So the county now has some final, hopefully final cleanup amendments. Before I get started, I'll add to what Dr. Sullivan said and to what Chairman Phillips asked, which is part of these cleanups amendments are things like, did somebody choose family insurance coverage versus single? Do we have an unemployment claim that we were unaware of? Those types of things. For example, one of the ones you're going to see tonight, some additional jury duty expense for a trial we didn't know the court system was going to have. And so those are the types of things that are coming at the end of the year here. So the first one is going to be unemployment, and that unemployment budget amendment, it's going to be item 7A on your iPads. I'll just go through them in order, but it'll be 7A. It's unemployment for the solid waste department. And so we had an unemployment claim come through that we were not expecting or didn't know about, and so it came in last week. And so that's what you see there. The next one is fixing a recovery court budget amendment. It reverses out what was wrong last time and fixes it with it's within the EBJP grant, the Evidence-Based Jail Program grant. So it's for $1,200, but it fixes that to match the grant budget. 7C is the large one tonight that it is a cleanup, but it's also to deal with a contract that we were unaware we were going to get billed. So this one is for $532,000. This is dealing with our Motorola maintenance contract that we have. So back before my time, back before a lot of the commissioners here's time, we signed a 10-year agreement with Motorola. We thought that payment was going to be every August. Now that they are billing us in May, so through discussions through our county attorney's office, through the mayor's office, it was determined instead of extending or changing that contract that we would go ahead and pay them in May, and we'll be on track now every year to pay them in May. So this is more of a timing of the payment than it is, we're not increasing that contract in any way.
Go ahead with the last one. If anybody has questions on any of these, I know Director Clark's here on the Motorola contract. Several of us remember that. Mayor, you're recognized.
If you don't mind, we're trying to, I think, Michael, all we did was prorate this to change the date is effectively all we did. Isn't that right?
No, so really we'll end up making 2 payments this fiscal year. So the contract had, I believe, 10 payments, equal payments. And so last year we had a dispute with Motorola of when the timing of that payment was. We actually had this kind of same issue last year. We had a budget amendment that came, and so we're trying to rectify that by getting all the payments to align in the same fiscal year versus the year they want us to bill. So instead of, they offered us a roundabout extension of the contract, but that would have required much more work and much more deliberation. This just aligns the payments now with the future payments that were in the contract.
Thank you.
So we won't make one in August this year. We'll make one next May, and it's already in the budget for next year's payment. So then the last one is going to be 7D. This is going to have 3 funds on it. These are things that we saw after we ran payroll. We ran payroll yesterday. So I'll run through those briefly. The first at the top up there is going to be the general fund. So you'll see a jury witness expense right there on the top line. After talking with the clerk's office, they were going to be over budget for they have a jury trial coming up. All of these amounts are very conservative, meaning I've estimated high, but we never know how many jurors they're going to ask to be there, how long they're going to have to be there, so we would much rather estimate high. Again, we had another unemployment claim come through. Had some utility costs that we wanted to make sure we had enough money for. We had a board and committee fees that met, that were underestimated, and then disability insurance. So things like as small as $100 we're cleaning up there. The solid waste department had some additional part-time expense, so we're cleaning that up. And then the ambulance fund had an additional contracted service payment that needed some cleanup as well. So with that, that's the four amendments.
Any questions from the committee on these cleanup amendments? And if I
Motion to approve.
have a motion to approve and a second, any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris. Yes. Commissioner Irvin.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson. Yes. Commissioner Pearcy. Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch.
Yes.
Commissioner Peay.
Yes. Okay. That brings us to item 8, Chief of Staff Compensation Resolution. Michael, you going to do this one?
I can talk about it, and then, so if y'all remember, there was a request by the mayor's office back when the original budget proposal about the chief of staff's compensation. As part of that was requested to go to steering to hear the structure of that, to look at that policy, to look at that resolution. Steering did hear that at their last steering committee meeting. They have passed a resolution. I believe that resolution was for 75% of the mayor's pay. The current pay of the chief of staff is 66%. That resolution has now been forwarded to budget for funding. And depending on what you do tonight on item 8 here, if you were to accept the resolution from steering under item 11, we will amend next year's budget for that. But that's kind of the timeline, a brief history of the timeline of this. And so steering has sent this to the budget committee for y'all's consideration tonight.
Any discussion from the committee?
I'm not 100% sure that you mentioned it, Michael, but it really doesn't increase that salary. It increases the salary with certain restrictions, such as an advanced degree, a law degree, an engineering degree, a CPA license, that type of thing.
So I'll mention that specifically then. So yes, there is an increase, and the way the resolution is worded, it's for valid professional licenses. I believe when the county attorney was looking at it, it was trying not to have to decipher between a business degree or this, so he left it as licenses, whether that be a professional civil engineering license, certified public accountant, or law license, or something equivalent. That way those licenses are determined by the state, because several different universities call their degrees different things, whether it's Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Business Administration. So I believe that's the reason it's worded that way, but you are correct. If they did not possess one of these licenses or professional certifications, then they would be at the 66%, which is what it is at today.
Okay, you've heard the discussion. Do I hear any further questions, or Commissioner Gooch?
I was just going to move that we accept steering's recommendation of 75%.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second? And a second. Any discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Harris. Yes. Commissioner Irvin.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Pearcy. Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch.
Yes.
Commissioner Peay.
No. Motion carries. Okay, that brings us. Yes.
Would it be out of order to back up? Let's talk about number 3 a little more, since there was no move made on that.
We've already passed that. You're talking about the Almaville?
Yes.
We're going to be coming up to some more changes. Let's wait on it till then. If you want to make a change on anything, you'll have the opportunity.
I was wanting to discuss it before the gentleman that come to help represent it went home, and they're in the lobby. That was the reason I wanted to do it now.
And I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said last. There's somebody here representing who?
The Almaville Fire Department that was here, they haven't left completely. They're in the lobby.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to bring it back up behind their back. That's the reason I asked now.
I understand. I'll leave that up to the committee. I hear a motion to, you want to make that in form of a motion, I'll bring that discussion up. Yes, all right, second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
There was no one here to represent the Christiana Fire Department. I'll guarantee you if they were here, they would have been in line for the extra $40,000. That's just common sense. We had this issue back when I had volunteer fire departments, one in Las Casas, one in Walter Hill, that was under Ketron's administration. Las Casas was being left out on an increase. Well, they really got upset. They lobbied for the increase. They really didn't get it. I finally made a recommendation that satisfied them, satisfied the committee, and it was solved. Now we've already voted. I'm very aware of that. To give them $40,000 above the $80,000 they were already going to receive. Did not give Christiana anything. Their commissioner is not here to represent them at all. We can save the county $40,000 more when Christiana gets the information that they didn't get any additional money. If we take the $40,000 that's already been allotted, split it between Almaville and Christiana, give them $10,000 apiece now for an emergency fund should they need it or have uses. They've got to have an additional $10,000. Hold the other $20,000 till after January, and if they need the additional $10,000 apiece, forward that on to them then. That would be my motion.
Okay,
I'm not taking anything away from Almaville. I'm just trying to save this county an additional $40,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second? I hear no second, so the motion dies for lack of second. That'll bring us back in line to say, Michael, where were we? The mineral severance tax, okay? And that's also something that's recently came out of steering. Want to go over that one for us, please?
So this resolution that's on your iPads in front of you did come through steering. The county attorney's office have looked at this and written this. This allows us to increase our mineral severance tax. And so that's, in a nutshell, that is, in a gist, what it is. Sorry, I know that oversimplifies it, but that's the simple version without me reading the entire thing.
Well, I know the state agreed for us to do this, and so, there's Chairman Harris. We can ask him about it if anybody has any questions. But basically, we need to pass this, forward it to the full commission to enact.
And the main reason we have to do this is because we're under a private act for our current mineral severance tax. Right now, our current mineral severance tax is capped because of general law, and because they changed general law, it's allowing us to increase our mineral severance tax. So we have to take a vote to change this. We don't have to change our private act because our private act already allows us to go up higher than this, and so this did come through steering. I believe it passed unanimously at steering, and if we pass it tonight, it'll go to the full commission.
Okay, you've heard that discussion. Do I hear a motion to approve the mineral severance tax? I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sereno seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin? Yes. Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes. That gets us to item 10, and I want to start off by saying I am not going to vote on this resolution because I'm part of that, and it's Commissioner Peay and Commissioner James' conference travel request. However, I want to make a suggestion. My suggestion is we do something similar to what most of the departments do that have travel. A lot of us have in the past done most of the travel on our own, and we had decided at steering to allow commissioners to apply for travel, especially for in-state. But my suggestion would be for this committee to come up with a budget, not for a specific item, but for travel. And then they would come back and apply for steering just as we've got it laid out. But anyway, that would be something we wouldn't have to come back every year or every time somebody comes up with a request and say, okay, we want to give X amount of dollars here. If you had a fund in there that say had $10,000, $20,000 in it, then we would shortcut some of the process. But anyway, that's up to the committee. Michael.
So what you see before you did go through steering, if you recall. I believe it was last month. And this started several months ago. We had a commissioner who wanted to go to a conference. That was kind of one of the first times that's happened. So the commission has passed a conference payment policy. And as part of that policy, they go through steering with the estimated cost for that request. Those forms are what you see on your iPads tonight. I believe this conference is in Gatlinburg, and it shows you the destination and the name of the conference on that form. That full policy that was passed is available online. We can send it to you if you'd like. So tonight, if you'd pass this, I would also agree with the chairman that it would be good to put some money in that travel account for the county commission. Otherwise, you'll have to come back every single time after the request.
Okay, you've heard the discussion. Any questions? Mayor, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As just a matter of process, the county employees, especially directors, it's not uncommon for them to go to a conference. Transactionally, how would this differ from that just as a matter of process? Because obviously if Tanya Bell in Building Codes needs to go to a conference in Dallas, Texas for 3 days, obviously that comes out of her budget. She sends in a requisition. It's all vetted and everything. Would it work similarly to that, Michael, or how would that actually work? Because I'm in agreement with the policy and the funding. It's just from a practical.
So it's very similar. So in this case, department head would come to you and say, I want to go to Dallas. In this case, the commission comes to themselves through the steering committee. The commission's policy is actually a little more restrictive than the county's policy. For example, for them to fly, they have to go over 400 miles for them to be part of their policy. So as part of that, they come to steering. If steering approves, then it goes to commission or budget, and they approve. When they get done, they submit forms to the finance office, just like any other employee would. They would be eligible for per diem based on the GSA rates. All of those same things would still apply. With receipts, backup documentation, all of that is the exact same. It is very, very similar to the school board process as well. A lot of elected bodies have that when they go to a conference like in Gatlinburg or Nashville, those types of things.
So if there is a flight beyond 400 miles, they would have to book the flight and then
we would reimburse.
They would get reimbursed, as opposed to currently county employees. The county purchases that ticket for them. In that right?
That's not always the correct. I think we encourage them if they can afford to book their own, okay. And then we reimburse them. Now we have some employees who can't afford that, and that's okay, and we try to help them.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Michael, before
Chairman,
You're
before
recognized.
we do this, we still have to go through steering to approve it and then go to the full commission.
Well, you saw this at steering 2 weeks ago, but yes, always the policy is they go to steering first to make sure the trip is applicable and approved, and then if there's no money in the budget, then it'll come to budget for funding, and then it would go to commission.
Chairman Phillips, you're recognized.
Did I understand that there's no specific amount in a budget?
There is not currently today, no.
Aren't you suggesting that we do that? Do we put a specific amount?
I am suggesting, or I think the chairman did, and I would agree with him, that you put a pot of money, and y'all have a line item for travel in the county commission's budget. Right now it is 0. I would recommend putting a pot there so that you don't have to come every time. That way, in that case, you would just go to steering.
I would have a suggestion that we do $21,000. That's $1,000 for each commissioner to start with. We got to start somewhere, and I would suggest that we start there. I don't ever remember us doing this before. I don't ever remember us spending money to go on these conferences or things, but I would suggest if we need a budget that we start with $21,000, see how that goes within the next year or so.
And I think that would be taken up under item 11, that amendment that you had. I will add, in the past, the mayor's budget has covered some of this stuff. I'll give you an example. I believe back before my time here, there was a commission trip that they went and toured some solid waste facilities. There were several commissioners and things that did that. The mayor's budget in the past has covered that. And so I think as part of this formal policy, it was a way to formalize everything and make sure that the steering committee had a say as far as what conferences they wanted the commissioners to go to, and it formalized that in a way that I think made it very transparent, right? Because in the past, it was all lumped in one big pot in the mayor's office, and it did make it hard. Sometimes commissioners had to eat that cost, or sometimes the mayor's budget took a hit for that, and so I think this just made it very clean, but I would 100% agree with you. I think that's a very reasonable amount to start with.
Well, you guys have heard the discussion. Do I hear a motion on any of this? Commissioner Gooch, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the conference is in August, correct?
Yes.
Which is next fiscal year. So I'm going to make a motion to fund the travel line item for the county commission at 21.
Item 11. Item 11 on the agenda.
Well,
so this item before you right now is just to approve the conference. If you want to go ahead and fund it, as Chairman Phillips and Chairman Peay said, we would cover that under item 11.
That's what I was going to do, is fund it through.
Well, we're still on item 10.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the conference expenses for Commissioner Peay and Commissioner James.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin? Yes. Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Mr. Peay?
Pass. And the motion carries. Okay, this now brings us to item 11, which is our budget review. And as Michael was pointing out, this is a time when if there's changes that we want to make, this would be a time to do that. And I'll let Michael speak to that.
So my request for the committee would be, before we get into any of the requests, there's a couple of housekeeping items that I think we could go ahead and take up before we take up anything else. I'll go ahead and list those and see if y'all want to entertain those items. The first would be to fund the item 8 that y'all approved earlier. That would be the Chief of Staff resolution. We would need to add $22,214 to the mayor's budget. We would also need to take up the $21,000 that Commissioner Gooch and Chairman Phillips just mentioned. And then also under that item on your iPads, under item 11, we need to take up the additional items that the Rob Committee approved for next year. That would be a total of $568,846. We can take those all separately if you would like, or I can write it all up and we can take it together.
I personally prefer we take it together, but if any of the committees wants to separate that, we'll do so. Not, then
Would you entertain a motion just to approve all of those?
I would at this time, yes. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve these budget amendments. Any further discussion on the amendments? One thing I'll mention, any changes we make here, it's going to take him a while to calculate that because at the end of the day, we're going to have to come up with a resolution and levy. So depending on what's thrown out here, we could possibly have to sit here for an hour or two for some of this calculations to be made. I prefer not to do any of that tonight if we can help it. But
I think Ms. Jolly can do the calculations in about 5 minutes.
well, she's
compared to the budget director's
very
hours.
efficient. I will agree. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin? Yes. Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Pearcy? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, Michael.
Those are the kind of housekeeping items I have for next year's budget. So now it'll be anything else up for the committee.
Chairman, I have one. I would like to make a motion to award Christiana Fire Department $40,000 like we did Almaville, and I think that that's warranted. So I'm making a motion to award them that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Have just a little, just for the record, could we have some explanation as to what the need is, just so you can kind of go through it? I get that both sides want it. That's fine. I'm just trying to get on the record kind of what the need is and that kind of stuff.
Personally, I can't give you an initial need, but I guarantee you they can find a use for it, just like any other volunteer fire department can. If they have money, they can make improvements. They can buy equipment they need. It goes back to the part of being fair on this commission floor and not showing favoritism. You have two volunteer departments. If you're going to help one, you need to help the other one. You didn't like the motion I made to save the county $40,000, so it's nothing but just to give both departments the same amount. We're already giving them $80,000 apiece. We give the one $40,000 more to help them. So why not give the other one $40,000 to benefit their needs also? There's no reason not to.
And I'm not questioning. I'm just trying to get on the record what they needed. Almaville came in and said we need it for this. I'm just trying to get it on the record. I'm going to vote for it. I understand you're a representative of that district. You want to
He's not a representative of
No, I'm not a
Fosterville.
representative. I'm taking part in standing up for the other volunteer department in this county. I know there's one in Eagleville, but Eagleville kind of takes care of them too. I tried to help them with half the money that was already allotted, but that didn't work. So let's just give them the full amount.
I'll add just a little bit to this, having been a volunteer and an advocate for volunteers. We don't have enough firemen in this county. We don't have enough volunteers or paid firemen. Now, if you look at the percent of money that we're spending on these volunteers versus Chief Farley's budget, which is, over 11 million? I forget the exact numbers now. But if you look at the percentage there of what you're getting for the pay, I think it's very reasonable what we're giving these guys. And the cost, like I said, having done this and just the insurance alone, we require them to carry $1 million liability insurance on any building they occupy. We require them to put $1 million on the engines that they're driving, whether they're county owned or not. And the requirements go on and on. You know, the one department said their insurance was $40,000. That seems really cheap to me because I was seeing that out at Kittrell years ago. It's very expensive to run these, not to mention the buildings they'll be occupying has to have upkeep. You have to have heat in the wintertime to keep these engines from freezing up and being able to run. So hopefully that answered some of that.
And like I said, I'm not questioning, I'm not really challenging it. I'm just trying to get on the record what the need is. That's
I understand.
That's all it is.
I understand.
Look for it, don't worry.
I want to add to my motion. I want to make sure this is a one-time, not a recurring cost, but a one-time.
Will the second accept that? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Gooch, you.
Okay, so I just want to explain why I will be voting no on this, is that Christiana made no presentation. They did not request this. I do not know how much money they have in the bank. I don't know how much money they do in fundraisings. I don't know what special needs that they have. So I would entertain in future months, if they do have the need, that they can come to us and we could do a budget amendment. But for them to make no request, for me to not know how much money they have in the bank or any other information, I'm not going to vote yes out of the sake of fairness when we don't even know what fair is in this situation, for them not even to make a request. So again, I'm going to vote no, but in the coming months, if they have a need, they want to come up, we can do a budget amendment, I would be fine with that.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin? Yes. Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Pearcy? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
No.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Michael, you want to continue with their budget review? Is there anything else you've got out there? We have, as you know, you've been looking at our budget. It's online. Michael can review that. At this time, we're going to move on unless somebody wants to make a change. Mayor Carr, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when the mayor's recommendation reviewed all the pay grade increases, working with Sonia and Michael, we spent a lot of time doing this, and we had a challenge with regard to the way our table's set up, specifically with Patrol Officer 2 and SROs. And on those, and including certified officers, which is about 165 personnel, I think that's right, isn't it, Sonia? And so we were doing most of the pay grade increases for first responders resulted in 2 or more pay grades. 2 pay grades in the vast majority of cases. But unfortunately, because of some structural reasons, it made it very, very difficult for us to go from a 24 to 26 for Patrol Officer 2, SROs, and other certified officers. As a result of Commissioner Beverly's presentation, quite honestly, and some things coming to light, I got with Michael and Sonia for the last couple of weeks, and I think we've been able to work out a solution, Mr. Chairman, where for Patrol Officer 2, SROs, and certified officers, we can actually go from a pay grade 24 instead of a 25, we can go from a 24 to a 26, which mirrors a lot more of what the other first responders are getting. And so, Mr. Chairman, I will be glad to entertain questions with your permission, with help from Michael and Sonia, to get into the weeds if that's necessary. But I would request a motion and a second from the committee, if that's available.
Well, the first question I've got for you is, why are you waiting so long? You know, I pointed out to this committee, any changes that we make, it's going to take them a while to get this done. Of course, he'll have from now to the weekend, or the next Monday, I guess it is, to get this done. But anytime we make a change, it's going to affect quite a few employees. It's going to take time for this to happen. Now, had this happened on Monday, for instance, we probably would have to adjourn, maybe even come back the next day, because this cannot happen with the snap of a finger. That's why, my request has been all along, you got changes you want to make that are going to affect a lot of people. We need them as soon as possible, just for logistics reasons. And I'm not saying anything about your proposal. I'm just saying that.
And I understand that, Mr. Chairman, and you're absolutely correct. And so I actually got with Michael and Sonia on this. This is new to the committee because I was informed that this was the most appropriate time to bring it up. But you're absolutely right. It takes a lot of administrative work to put this together. So my understanding is I talked to Michael and Sonia last week about this. My understanding is they have done the work already necessary for this committee, so it wouldn't take a couple of days or even a couple of hours. So we've come prepared. We're prepared to make the presentation, make the argument, hopefully convincingly to make this, so we're not here for 2 or 3 hours waiting on the numbers. And so with that, if Mr. Chairman, if it's all right with you, I can let Michael explain the numbers along with Sonia, but I believe they're prepared as per your request.
Michael.
So I'm prepared. I've been asked by, full disclosure, I've been asked by several people, the mayor's office, several commissioners, for estimates on a number of things, ranging from longevity to across-the-board raises to this. So 2 things. I am prepared tonight to give an estimate of cost for a number of items that may come before us tonight. However, it will take time to revise the appropriation resolution because, as you know, the appropriation resolution before you tonight is what went to publication. So I am prepared to give an estimate of cost for this, plus, like I said, several questions I've received from commissioners. But we will, to vote on this tonight, we will need to recess for a little bit. I don't think it'll be a day, but we will have to recess if this were to get a motion and pass, or for me to get an exact number, we will have to recess for a little bit.
Chairman.
You're recognized.
Okay. Mayor, thanks for that. Michael and Sonia, you always do a good job. I'm against any, I call it segmented raises. If we're going to do this, I'd like to see the entire county the entire table get a 2% raise. So while you're doing your calculations, let us know how much it's going to cost, because I believe everybody should get one or not at all. So that's my feelings. But I appreciate, what we're doing here, but I'd like to see those numbers as well. Is that something you've already worked on? Mm-hmm.
So I can respond to that.
Well, Michael, you said you needed, 5 minutes, or are there any other questions? Because we're going to take about a 10-minute break.
I may have it in 30 seconds here.
Well, if that's the case.
So like I said, I was prepared to answer the question of costs. I've received a lot of different questions and proposals. So I'll go ahead and tell you what I think what the mayor just asked for a cost. I'll answer Commissioner Harris's. Commissioner Harris, is your question for what a 2 or 3% would cost across the board? Is that your question?
Yes.
So right off the bat, 3% across the board is roughly $3.5 million. Now keep in mind that involves the general fund, solid waste fund, and ambulance service fund. Obviously, 2/3 of that number, we can do that math on $3.5 million. Excuse me.
How would that affect our tax rate, Michael?
So 2% would be roughly 2.3 to 2.4 million, somewhere in that range. I'm within $100,000 or so there. The mayor's question right there would be right at $500,000 or a little less than $500,000 for the patrol move. Now to the ultimate question is, how do we pay for all this? How does it affect the tax rate? I think that's probably the question that anybody's going to have about any proposal. So the answer is, I'll give you several options. One, obviously we could raise taxes on any of these proposals. I'm not advocating we do so, but that is always an option on the table. Another option is all of our funds have healthy fund balances, so we could budget, add the expense, run a budgeted deficit. That does not mean we will end there. That does not mean we couldn't absorb that, but that is an option as well. A third option is we could cut something to fund this. I'm not advocating we do that either, but that's always an option. Fourth option is we could revise some revenue estimates. A fifth option is we do a combination of several, which would probably be my recommendation for one of these options, if any. That could include a combination of moving pennies. That could include a combination of moving pennies plus some revenue estimates. So to answer that specific question would be, once a proposal, if I had a specific proposal to answer on, that answer is going to be different depending on how many funds it affects. So if we did across the board, the general fund could easily absorb certain things. 118 or 116, we would have to have a conversation about how we wanted to fund those as well. I know that's a very long answer, but the answer is we have options and there's many.
Just a moment. I'd like to recognize Sonia first, and then I'll entertain you.
I don't know if my question was, I just wanted to make sure that I understood. So are you saying an additional 2 or 3% on top of the 2% that's already budgeted?
Yes, I believe that was Commissioner Harris's
Okay, I just wanted to make
question.
sure it was on top of, okay.
If I understood his question correctly, it was essentially looking at, instead of just, I believe the mayor's proposal was for patrol and the equivalent, and I believe Commissioner Harris was saying, hey, let's look at that percentage or something very similar to countywide to all employees. Is that correct? So that would be on top of anything that's in the budget today. All of this would be on top, I believe, of anything that's on the sheet today.
Commissioner Irvin, you're recognized.
And I may have missed it. The cost for the patrol and SRO?
A little, right around $500,000, a little less, give or take 20,000. I mean, that's a good estimate to use, yes. I think it'll be a little less, but yes.
Would you repeat that number?
Right at $500,000 for the, I believe if I understood the mayor correctly, it was patrol, SROs, and equivalents. And I'll just go ahead and clarify what equivalence is. That's going to be the, in the sheriff's office, Steve will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's going to be the certified warrants would also be included in that. And I think there's 1 or 2 other positions that are on that same pay grade. I just don't know their titles off the top of my head. It's very few. Patrol, SROs, warrants. That's the other one I was missing. Judicial security, sorry. I knew I was missing one. So.
Can you repeat those groups again? You said judicial security and...
So in that same category is going to be patrol, SROs, certified warrants, and judicial security certified. Post-certified officers for judicial security. I think that's everybody.
That's 4 groups. The mayor, is that? Mayor indicates that is what he was wanting for. Any discussion from the committee or?
Again, just as a reminder, I understand this is late for you in the committee, but this is something that I've been talking to Michael and Sonia about for probably 10 days. So again, my apologies, but this was the night that I was to understand was most appropriate. So again, my apologies.
Are we ready for a motion on any of this?
Let me recognize Commissioner Gooch. He's been over here waving his elbows at me, so, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to suggest another option, which is we're already on record to continue this conversation with more study and reflection for mid-year consideration. We're already on record as far as holding on to the generous raises that we already have on the table, and then continue the conversation for mid-year raises as we see the revenue coming in. And there's other options as far as looking at total compensation as compared just to pay. And so I just want to remind us of that option also.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Pearcy, you're recognized.
I couldn't hear half of what Mr. Gooch said, but it won't affect my motion at all. I'm going to make the motion to approve the mayor's recommendation based on the fact I think we really need to look at a separate pay table for our first responders before we go real deep into the raises. Maybe not for this time, but in the coming budget year, we need to let Sonia and Michael maybe instruct them ever how this works to work on that, because I know they don't have the time now, but that will enable us to help the people that really needs helping the worst. That would be my thoughts on that.
So you've made a motion to,
I have to approve the mayor's request.
which was to give, what was it exactly, Michael? You got that down for me?
All right, I'm gonna repeat it back, make sure. I think it is to move patrol, SROs, judicial services, and certified warrants, or equivalent, in case I'm missing one, but to move those, what's already in the budget now is a 25, to move those to a pay grade 26. Okay, I'm getting a nod yes from everybody. Did I miss anybody, Steve? Okay.
And let me complete this, and I'll recognize you, Commissioner Johnson. And what was the estimated revenue or cost of this, excuse me?
It's going to be right at $500,000 or a little less. So I've waited to actually formally put any of these requests from everybody in until, because it'll take me a little bit of time to modify this. It's going to be right at $500,000, maybe a tad less. I mean, it could be between $450,000 and $500,000 probably.
Okay, so now we've clarified your motion, which is basically approximately $500,000, which will give increases to patrol, SRO, certified warrants, and certified judicial, and that's by bringing them up to a 26-step level. So that is the motion. Do I hear a second on that motion? I have a second, Commissioner Johnson, and a third over here. Any further discussion?
Just for clarification, to be clear, so the original budget was that those individuals were at a 24 table level, and then we voted to go ahead and go on up to a 25. Is that where we're currently at right now? And then now this is to get them to 26 instead of the 25?
So just to clarify, and I'll repeat this back to make sure, currently today our patrol officers are at a 24. Part of the budget proposal and what is included in the budget proposal for publication, they would move to a 25. And I believe this proposal would move them to a 26. And also to clarify, because I get this question, so I'm going to read it because somebody will call me tomorrow and ask, roughly, approximately, every grade changes 3%. So moving from a 25 to a 26 would be a roughly approximate, it's not exact, but it'd be very close to 3%, an additional 3%.
And if this is just for patrol, SRO, people in that category, I know one of the concerns that I think that the sheriff was not really a concern is that when we went from a 24 to 25, that it kind of squeezed the people above them, and we kind of felt like that would be okay for a year. So what does going from 25 to 26, how much of a squeeze is that?
Sonia's going to have to correct me if I'm wrong. I think it does place a small squeeze. I do believe there is still a 2 pay grade difference between them and corporals. Sonia would have to confirm, or somebody, Steve shaking his head yes. So yes, it does. That is the con to changing the grade of a lower level position, as it puts a squeeze. So that does mean a promotion would be less money than it is a less percentage increase than it is today. That is true, if you were to move from a patrol to a corporal.
And where on the table are the corporals?
I believe they're at 28. I'm looking at Sonia and Steve, and they both said yes, so I think that's correct.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, so, again, this raise is only for, so how many police officers will not get raises on this?
Before I go looking, Steve, do you know how many patrol you got off the top of your head? How much?
Use your mic, please.
I can pull that number exactly. I just thought if they had it, I'd.
So the patrol officer twos, the SROs, the warrants, certified officers, CSU, training deputy, those individuals, there's 165 of those, sorry. But if you're counting the individuals, is that what you were asking?
Asking how many of the total workers at the sheriff's department will not get a raise?
That would be about 300 probably, because there's a little over 500 employees out there.
Thank you.
You're recognized, Mayor.
Thank you. That's a good question. But to clarify, as an example, a detention officer under the current proposal that's not included in this is getting 2 pay grades. A booking officer is currently getting 2 pay grades. And so what we're trying to do, we're trying to fix this so it matches the pay grades that others are already getting. Instead of 1 pay grade, they also get 2 pay grades. So we're trying to match that a little bit. The challenge was because of that, and the way the pay table structured, that suppression above it with the corporals. And Sonia and Michael and I have talked about that, and that is an issue that we think we can address later in the year that will need to be addressed. And it may be addressed in part by Commissioner Piercy's suggestion of a separate pay table. Not to advocate for that or not, but that is one probable solution. So we're trying to fix something that occurred in the original recommendation that other sheriff personnel were already receiving in 2 pay grade increases.
Any other comment? You're
I
recognized.
get that, but the problem I have is all the police officers get one if any of them. Now we're going to come back and Commissioner Gooch is going to January. So, and we decide to do something then, do I tell those people, hey, you're not getting it? So now you see what I'm saying? We're giving raises when everybody should be getting a raise. Shouldn't be one part. I mean, if the police department or sheriff's department, every one of them should get it then. So that's my problem that I have. I just don't believe in just one service. So we can still afford it, but that's where I want to be on that. I just want to explain that.
Okay. Any other comments from committee members? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
No.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
No.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion carries.
Chairman Peay?
Just a moment. I've got a question, and I'll come right back to you. Excuse me. Michael, are you going to need some time before we were able to move forward into the levy to calculate any of this, or?
I will. My request for the committee is, let's get all the requests for item 11 done, and then maybe give me some time to see if I can get that together. But if we could, any other requests for item, if we could do all of those before I go to start calculating, that would be my request.
Commissioner Piercy, you're recognized.
Thank you. Since we're having so much fun, I've got another motion I would like to make. I was asked to do this by several on the longevity fund. Our longevity fund is set at $25 a year after you've been here 3 years. I don't know how long it's been in place. Michael, how long has that been in place? The longevity fund?
I'm going to defer to long time.
Sonia?
Don't look at me. More than 18 years.
Thank you. That's close enough.
Long time then.
It's not a whole lot. It's not an incentive to stay. It's just a very small number. I'm going to make the motion that we raise the longevity fund from $25 a year after 3 years to $100 a year and put a $2,000 cap on it, where it will never exceed $2,000 per individual.
Okay, you have a motion to increase our longevity pay after 3 years to $100 from $25 and cap that at $2,000 per year maximum. Well, I'm sorry.
What's the annual cost, Mr. Chairman?
I don't know. Let me see if I get a second before we get off in the weeds here. Do I hear a second on his motion? Motion fails for lack of a second. Any other changes to this year's budget?
I've got a change, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Gooch, you're recognized.
Out of fairness, I move that we give Eagleville firefighter $40,000 extra.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to give Eagleville Fire Department, and they are not a volunteer fire department. My understanding, they are a municipal fire department.
This is out of fairness.
I understand. Do I hear a second? And I did have a second. Any further discussion? I just wanted to clarify the difference there. Hearing no further discussion, call roll.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Pearcy? Commissioner Sereno? Please.
What was you, Commissioner Sereno? Did you say yes or no? You said yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes, so that's unanimous. Any further budget amendments tonight request at this time? Speak now or forever hold your peace, and we'll give Michael a little time. Hear none. Michael, how much time do you need? We'll take a short recess.
I'm gonna need at least, I tell you what, before we do that, I want to recap everything we've changed and make sure I haven't missed something, if that's okay with the committee.
Please do.
So, this is no particular order, this is just how I have them written on my sheet here. So, we're going to increase the mayor's budget $22,214. That's based on the chief of staff resolution. We're going to increase the opioid budget $568,846,000.
Michael, slow down on those numbers again. If you give them both to me again.
I'll start over. We're going to increase the mayor's budget $22,214 based on the chief of staff resolution. We're going to increase the opioid budget, which is really the alcohol and drug abuse budget on your sheets, but we're going to increase that $568,846. We're going to increase the county commission's travel budget to $21,000. We're going to increase the fire department's volunteer fire department contributions by $40,000 to Almaville. We're going to increase the fire department's budget by another $40,000 for Eagleville. And I think I missed Christiana as well, so we're going to increase Christiana by $40,000 as well. And then the last item I had, which is we're going to add an extra pay grade to patrol, and that's going to be about approximately $500,000. Oh, then the $40,000 for Almaville was already in there, sorry. Did I miss anything from the committee?
I think that's everything we've covered tonight. Any of the members recollect different?
What's the 500,000 coming out of?
We can talk about that when we get to the tax levy resolution. I tell you, if y'all give me a few minutes, maybe 10 or 15.
Guys, we're gonna take a 15-minute break, and I'll check with him, and we'll come back soon. Back to order. One thing I want to mention is Michael has been working on our numbers to get our budget review, our tax levy resolution ready. We, talking to Sonia, we have found one person that we had missed when we were doing our salary increases, and we'd like to add that one person now instead of having to change that for later. And Sonia, you can elaborate if you want to. If not,
So in my checks and balances, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I noticed that one of our employees at the sheriff's office, I needed to get him on the table where he was supposed to be, and that was an oversight on my part, so I will apologize for that, but I'm asking that we correct that, and that would be to my knowledge, the only correction that we would have, because I've gone back and checked the other stuff. So that would be to move that position to a different pay grade, and I believe
I'll
Make
entertain
that
it.
motion, Mr. Chairman, to move to table 44 and to deputy chief.
All right. I have a motion. Do I hear a second? I thought I heard one. Piercy, Commissioner Piercy had the second. Any discussion on that particular issue?
Sonia, can you read the position number or something for the record for that?
If we didn't do this now, we'd be doing it right after the budget year to straighten this out.
would be position 1301 to the deputy chief of legal at the sheriff's office.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin? Yes. Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes. Michael, would you give us an update, please?
Okay. I will go back tonight and double check and make sure I haven't transposed the number. But as I understand it, I'm going to recap again the changes I made, just because I always get nervous when we're making changes on the fly, and I'm on my little laptop screen. So I'm going to go through and read the changes, and at the same time read the new department total, so we don't have to reread them on the Appropriations Resolution. So if we could, I'm just going to go kind of in order of the changes here. I think that'll be good. That way we have it for the record, and everybody can write that down. So these are not the particular order you voted, but they're in the kind of the order of what I've entered them in. So the first change that we've got tonight is we increased the county commission's budget $21,000. That new total is going to be $555,878. I will read a total at the end for everybody too as well. The next one is going to be, we increased the mayor's department $22,214. That was the chief of staff resolution. Okay. The next change in order of account number is going to be the sheriff's office pay. That change, we needed to reflect a little bit of that into the overtime category, because as we changed that change ended up being $523,614. So the actual change to salaries was a little less than $500 like we thought, but I really think it's prudent if we go ahead and increase the overtime a little bit, because as their salaries increase, you're going to have to pay them at that new rate. So their new total for the sheriff's office would be $50,891,559. $50,891,559. That's going to be for the 54110 category for those looking at your book, but that's for the sheriff's office. Okay. The next is going to be for, in your books, it'll be rural fire protection, but it's account 54320 rural fire protection. We increased that $80,000. So their new total is going to be $13,725,614. $13,725,614.
That is not for the volunteers, that is the total fire.
That is for the total fire department's budget. We increased it $80,000, who are part of the rural fire protection budget. So the change tonight is you added $40,000 for Christiana and you added $40,000 for Eagleville. So I read the total budget because that's what we'll have to have for the appropriations. But just to clarify, we increased the rural fire protection budget by $80,000. $40,000 for Christiana and $40,000 for Eagleville. Okay. And then the last change was for the opioid money. Now, for your books, that's going to be the alcohol and drug program. That's going to be account 55170. we increased that $568,846. That new total is going to be $1,455,586. $1,455,586. Now, getting to the end, so those are all the changes I had. If I missed anything, somebody please let me know. So now the new total. So that all of those changes that I just read to you, get down to the brass tacks, added $1,215,674. That was the increase to the county general fund. I'm going to read it again. $1,215,674. That was an increase to the county general fund. To my knowledge, that was the only fund that was increased tonight. Now I'm going to read the new total for the county general fund. That's going to be $189,028,957. $189,028,957. Now the next question that I'm sure we'll get, what's the new deficit? So as of right now, with the revenues, how they currently sit, and the new appropriations, the budgeted deficit would be $2,773,264. That would be the budgeted deficit. Now, just to clarify,
Can you repeat that one more time, Michael?
$2 million, and I can send out an email too after this, but $2,773,264 would be the budgeted deficit. Now I want to put one caveat on that. As part of that deficit, over $1.5 million of that is going to be for opioid money. Because as a reminder, the alcohol and drug program budget is approximately $1.5 million, plus we also fund the matching portion of the COPS grant, and we also fund a position in the probation department. So,
If I could, and just on that opioid grant money, that's grant money that was already received, that doesn't get spent until next year. Is that how that works? And that's why there's that.
yes.
Thank you. Well,
Okay. So that's all the changes you've got, Michael.
Unless I've misunderstood a motion from the committee, that'd be the changes I have now. The one caveat I will make to this is obviously I'm making this very fast on the fly. I will double check my numbers when I get back tomorrow or Friday. I will double check them before Monday. I don't believe there's anything materially different. I've tried to double check them here. So there could be that I transposed a number or something typing very fast. I will double check those before Monday. But that would be all the changes under item 11 that I don't have anything, Chairman.
Okay, that's going to move us down to item 12, which is the Tax Levy Resolution, and you will find that on your iPads. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to cover the Tax Levy Resolution. Now, if you want a review of that, we can review that, but I don't want to read all that. Michael, you want to do a quick review on the expenditures and the fund rate? But
I'd like to say one quick thing about this, if that's okay, Chairman. When you're looking at this tax levy resolution, of course, that's going to be item 12, as the Chairman mentioned. Our rate is the same as last year. So there is no tax increase, just to be very clear. However, there is a movement of pennies. So the breakdown of that rate has changed. That is listed on Section 1 of the tax levy resolution. As you look down through the rest of this, all of that is standard language. I will be glad to talk as much as you would like about that. But all of that is, those sections 2 through 10 are in there every year, those sections.
any questions for Michael on the tax levy resolution? And just to repeat, the total tax is the same as last year's, 1.8762.
That's correct.
I will entertain a motion. I have a motion to approve the tax levy and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin? Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes, motion carries. And that moves us to the Appropriations Resolution, item 13. And basically, it shows the breakdown of each department. Michael?
So I will, if you would like me to read all of that again, what I just read under item 11. But the reason I read those, as you can see there, for example, the county commission categories at the top, I will go over that one just as an example. So if we look there, the previous number that was approved for publication was 534,000. We've increased that tonight by 21,000, so now it's 555,878. I read all of those department totals a second ago. I will update those before Monday, but the one thing that I will draw your attention to is on the second page, you will see a total for the general fund. That's the new total that I read a minute ago, will be the $189,028,957. We'll take that place. Based on all the changes that I read, I'll go through and update the rest of those. So that's the only change that will be made, that was made tonight, was to the general fund. I don't recall any other changes. I will briefly go through the rest of this, just for the record. This goes in order of fund. So after the general fund, which we've talked about tonight, the next is our Fund 119. After that is Solid Waste Fund 116. After that, it's Ambulance Fund, Special Purpose, Drug Control, Highway, and so forth. All of it's the same as what was in publication. To my knowledge, there's been no changes. The rest of the sections after that are all the same as last year. But I would like to draw your attention to, I believe it's page 7 on there. It's where we start talking about the nonprofits. We have listed out all the nonprofits. I get questions a lot. What nonprofits got money? This is the exact section of the Appropriations Resolution of what was approved. So for example, it starts at item 1, Journeys and Community to Live in It, and goes all the way down. I will add, there was some money given to the capital campaign for Smyrna Senior Citizen Centers. Those types of things, we add those together. They're not going to be listed separate for this, for the purpose of this appropriations resolution. I will read the entire thing if you'd like, but I would rather not. It is over 10 pages, or 10 pages. Any questions? I will ask that if there is a motion that you could approve this appropriation resolution subject to the changes that I read under item 11 for the general fund tonight, if the committee wishes to approve this.
You've heard the request. Committee, I have a motion. Commissioner Piercy, thank you. Second, Commissioner Sereno. Any further discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin? Yes. Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes, motion carries. Gentlemen, we have some other business, and hopefully that won't take long. Michael, if you want to explain, we've had a grant that we just got, was it today or yesterday?
Yes, I received the email, I believe it was late yesterday afternoon. So as y'all know, every year we get a grant from the state for our electronic monitoring indigency funds, our EMIF grant. As a reminder, we're required to cover those costs of the electronic monitoring of indigent, people declared indigent by the court system. So the state in the years past used to put up some matching money. Now they've shifted to a grant process. So every year we apply. So tonight I'm requesting permission to apply and accept that grant for fiscal year FY26. And I do not know how much the amount will be. They don't tell us on the front end. If we don't apply, then we have to cover the full cost. So we really try to apply and get as much as they will give us.
Have a motion. You have.
Is there a match?
Well, so we cover the cost regardless of these monitoring funds.
There is no match.
So, yes.
Second.
Yes, there we go.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to apply for this grant for the EMIF, let's say that, funds. And Do we need to add to that motion to allow the mayor to accept that?
And all parties to be able to, for us to accept. That's typically how I write that.
Okay, is that okay with the motion and second? Okay. Further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin? Yes. Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Pearcy? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch? Yes. Commissioner Peay?
Yes, motion carries. Guys, that's got everything tonight, Monday, 9 a.m. Actually, come a little early. I think they might have a biscuit for you here. But we are adjourned.